Hi everyone, I'm Simone Herring. You're listening to Out the Box on High FM 101.9. We're talking about where minds don't fit the mould, but hearts do keep striving. Today we're tackling something that really sits at the heart of every subject, every grade, and honestly every part of life. It also has a massive impact on every child's confidence, the beauty and the pain of reading. If you've ever thought, why is reading homework taking hours? Why is my child so avoidant to the point of leaving or even hiding his reader at school? Is there something that will eventually click? Well, you're not alone. We're here, we want to hold your hand, and we want you to become part of the community of children that do not fit the mold. You know, I must share with you that from the very outset, the issue of literacy has always been such a personal journey for me and almost an educational evolution because of my beautiful sons and their very rocky road to literacy. My experience is not only complex, but it's so utterly personal, and I think that this is the same for many parents out there. I'd like to share with you the stumbles and fumbles and the learning blocks we were confronted each and every day. For this reason, I went back to university, and I say that in inverted commas, at the age of 40. I completed an award in literacy and dyslexia, which was a 2-year course at Bella Vista in conjunction with the British Dyslexia Association. My one son was so proud of me that he told everyone who would actually listen to him that I was a dyslexic therapist. It wasn't so great for business, but you know, the pride that he had in me just made it okay. I became an unflinching advocate for my children, and I was unapologetic in my persistence and steadfastness. Never have I ever endeavoured so much. You don't need a qualification to understand how to advocate your child. You just need to self-educate yourself. And how do we do this? We do this by tapping into conversations with professionals, but more specifically listening to and sharing your own lived experiences. We're all in the same boat, but we're certainly not in the same storm. Let's be real, there are some days where you want to pull the duvet over your head and hide from the world. You simply do not always have the capacity to be your child's gladiator. It's fine to go AWOL. It's fine, you'll come back when you're recharged and ready. I am so thrilled to welcome my guests today. It really is a true honor to have them with me. Viv van Staden and Lital Propheta come to us from Redhill School in Johannesburg. Viv van Staden is an educational psychologist, the head of learning support and the early learning centre of the junior school. And Lital Propheta Amber is a speech and hearing therapist responsible for literacy and language intervention for grades 2 to 5. Lital, you are my guardian angel. And I actually get quite tearful when I think about it because, you have been a warrior. And I mean that with the WARRIOR. Did I spell it correctly? You have been the warrior for my children. And I have the deepest gratitude to you. Welcome, Viv. Welcome, Lital. And thank you for joining our discussion today. So let's dive right in. What is the true definition of literacy? Because as we know, it's so much more than being able to just read the words on the page.
So when we talk about literacy, we're not just talking about reading words off a page, lifting the words off a page. Literacy is how a child understands language, uses language, and makes sense of the world. So it's listening, speaking, reading, writing, and feeling confident doing all of that. So when literacy becomes difficult, when it becomes challenging, it affects everything and not just English.
A warm welcome to our listeners this morning. My name is Viv van Staden and I'm Head of Support for both ELC and the Junior School at Redhill. I agree with Lital. Reading is not one skill. It is many skills that are interwoven together. And what we have learned is that if one skill is not efficient and automatic, we start seeing the unraveling of reading. This is particularly captured in the theory by the researcher Hollis Scarborough, who developed the Scarborough reading rope. And this is particularly for teachers to have a broader understanding of the many skills that reading entails. The rope shows that skilled reading is made up of 2 strands, word recognition and language comprehension. Each strand has a number of skills that start right from preschool, right up into our junior school, and each skill has got to be explicitly and systematic taught. What we know is literacy is the foundation of all learning. In the early years, we focus on literacy as a skill. But this skill is developmental and is necessary for all types of learning, right from the early learning centres, right up to matric. It is the way to access knowledge and to make meaning of the world around us.
And if we don't have that, we're lost. Literacy is truly a myriad of challenges. I realized this when I started learning more about it, and I have to say that I graduated as a teacher with a bachelor in primary education. And after I did this course, I realized I knew nothing about how to teach reading. And I'm not saying that teachers today are in the same position that I was in, but when I look back and I understand that each child needs to be taught explicitly in order to learn to read.
Even doing that course, it's still challenging as you work with each child.
Undoubtedly.
Each child is an individual. Each child has their own path and with their own difficulties. So
they're individuals and they deserve to be treated as such.
Yeah.
What is the true definition when we look at how we learn to read? Are we born and our brains are wired with a special place that says learn reading here? Is that something that comes naturally because it's already within the brain?
So Mary Ann Wolfe, who's a professor at UCLA, she started research decades ago on the reading brain, and in her book, The Price and the Squid, she talks about how our brains are developed to speak, but not to read. And that as teachers, as parents, we have to develop those reading circuits in the brain to develop reading structures where the child will learn. It's not a natural cognitive process. It is something that needs to be developed.
So parents need to really not see it as a failure. That's why that explicit and systematic teaching is so important, and giving the child a chance and not giving up on a child.
We need to give the children a chance to rewire existing systems like vision, language, memory, in order to make reading possible. So before we even get to reading, there are so many building blocks that we need to ensure are in place.
And for some children, access to it is a lot easier, whereas some children,
absolutely,
the pathway is
absolutely. I have to say, and I always tell parents whose children I'm working with, or parents who just phone for advice, that reading difficulties do not mean low intelligence.
Yeah.
And please do not ever let anyone tell you or your child that they are not intelligent. It doesn't mean laziness. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that my child is lazy, he has no work ethic, he's not trying hard enough.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't show a lot of the comments to my children because they are soul destroying. So please take care when you talk about someone's child.
It's so important actually to build a child's confidence and self-esteem. So much of the intervention and the teaching is building a child's self-confidence and self-esteem. You have to. That's part of the process. So
that speaks to exactly what you said about children being individuals. Some children's brains learn to read effortlessly. Some children even teach themselves to read. Others need that much more structured, systematic, and explicit type of teaching. And parents need to know that is normal. It's normal. So don't feel like you've made a mistake or you should have done something earlier.
Or look at it or even looking at it as a problem.
It's an opportunity.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way of putting that, Viv. It's an opportunity.
So I just want to pick up on what you were saying about the confidence of the children. When they start early in school, they're not always aware I was a teacher for grade 1 for many years, and if children get older, they're very aware that they're not on the same level as their peers. And while sometimes on the outside they don't appear to be struggling, on the inside we start seeing their self-esteem diminishing and their belief in themselves. And that's when you hear children saying, I'm stupid, I can't work like my peers. That is because they are comparing themselves just with the one aspect of their academic performance, not all the other areas in their life that are so well developed.
Yeah. Parents and teachers, we need to remind our children of their other strengths, talk to their other strengths.